Hello, this is Hannah Cruse, and I'm going to show you basic registration on the organ. This is the Fisk Opus 101 tracker organ, and the keys are completely mechanical. So when you press down a key, it pulls a lever up and opens a flap to the pipe, which allows air into the pipe. We have couplers that take the stops from one keyboard and put them on another keyboard. And what's really nice about this organ, since it is mechanical, is that we have this great servo-pneumatic lever. So, for example, okay, if you want to put these stops on the great keyboard down here, the servo-pneumatic lever turns on the electronic key action so that it's not heavy for your fingers. It's very light that way, but without it, it's heavy. So that's pretty handy on this organ. The numbers on the stops correspond to the length of the pipe in feet. So for example, the octave 8 foot is at this tone, and if you double the length so that it's a 2-to-1 ratio, so now it's 16 feet, you get the octave below that. And if you divide this by 2 and you get 4 feet, then you have an octave above. And again with the 2-foot stop. So you can combine all of these and get 4 octaves all at once. Okay, and we have some unique stops on the organ. These are called mutation stops. This one is 2 2/3 foot long, and that would give you 1 octave and a 1/5 above the 8-foot tone. So let's say we play the 8-foot tone down here. This will give us an octave and a 1/5. So it should give us this tone right here, and it does. And then this one is 1 3/5 foot long. So that will give us 2 octaves and a 1/3 above this. So it should be 2 octaves and a 1/3. If you combine all of these, it gives us a really interesting tone. It's kind of shimmery. Okay. We also have the celeste over here in the swell manual. And this is an interesting stop because there are actually 2 pipes and they're tuned a little bit off from each other so that you get kind of a wolf tone effect. And you can hear this more if you put it with another stop like this one. I don't know if you can hear it in the camera, but it makes a little wah-wah sound. Can you hear that? A little bit. Okay, so the basics of putting the stops together are you want usually 1 of each foot in your combination. So like you might put 8, 4, and 2 together. And that's a really balanced sound that allows all of the harmonics to sound kind of balanced. And this is better than, say, 3 8-foots. It's okay, but it sounds a little bit more hollow. On each keyboard we have our foundations, and those are like the stops that sound like your traditional organ. So you have all the principals, such as the octaves, the prestants, kind of sounds like a hymn. Or you could have the same thing in this keyboard. And then we have our flutes. We have some nice flutes over here in the swell. This also includes bourdons. Okay, have some over here as well. Okay, and we have our strings. We don't have too many strings on this organ, but here's one for example. The violoncelle and the pedal. Okay, and last we have reeds. So this would include oboes, clarinets, trumpets, and clarions. So here's a nice big reed sound in the swell. This organ is nice because it has French and German reed stops on it so that you can play music more accurately. That's for what the composer would have wanted as far as stops. So the trommetins would be a German sound, and you might hear this in like Bach chorales when you're playing the hymn tune in the pedal. And then like the trumpet and the clarion are more French, and it's more shimmery and soloistic. Okay. Also we have some mixtures, and that's just when, well, it's basically combinations of sounds that they've already put together for you. So like the grand cornet. And the Roman numerals on these stops, I don't know if you can see them from there. They tell you how many sounds that they've combined in the stop. So like this one's 5. Not exactly sure. That's 5 to 8? 5 to 7? Anyway, they're usually higher sounds. So you'd want to combine foundation stops with it to fill it out and make the harmonics fuller. Okay. Okay, a few more things about this organ. The tremulant up here is like vibrato, except rather than changing pitch, it just changes the dynamic. And there's a little billow mechanism back there that puffs air in and out, and so it just creates like a loud, soft effect. Just a little bit of a vibrato. We have our swell pedal down here, and this only applies to the swell keyboard, and it allows us to do some dynamics. So get a little bit of a crescendo there. And we have a crescendo pedal to the right of that, which just adds ranks for you. But it's a little difficult to use because you never know. Well, it's hard to gauge, which stops are going to come on at what time, but sometimes it can be useful. Okay, lastly, when you're playing organ, you have to consider the room that you're in. The Cruse hall here does not have a lot of reverberation to it naturally, and so we have these louvers out here, which are just the slats on the wall. When they're completely closed, it's the most reverberant, and that's best for organ playing. The swell pipes are up here above us, all the way up there, and there's some consequences to this. First, the heat tends to rise up there, and so those pipes are sharper because the air is less dense and sound waves can oscillate faster. Also, the swell is not as loud right here at the bench as it is out in the audience because the sound tends to fall towards the audience. So sometimes it's hard to mix sounds from the swell and other keyboards here without someone in the audience to tell you how it sounds. Okay, that's about it for this Fisk organ. Thank you, hope you enjoyed.